Greetings. I realized that when I did the Pro Tools First music mixing demo last week, I had to go pretty fast. And so I wanted to do a more relaxed version that you could go back and review if there's any steps that you missed, or maybe you missed the class entirely. So to begin the music mixing process, you'd go to our Foxtail page and choose one of these folders and download that to your laptop or to your computer. That will be a compressed folder that when you extract it, it'll look something like this. So it's a folder that contains all the audio files associated with the session. This Pro Tools file was the original mix session that I cut into bits for each song. And then there are various backups and wave caches that you don't need to worry about. Okay, then we'll open up Pro Tools Free. There we go. Then we'll open Pro Tools Free, and hopefully you now have that working on your computer. The things that seem to be messing most people up are getting Pro Tools to talk nicely with your sound card. The place to go if that happens to you is in the setup, and then go to hardware or playback engine. Okay, so the first step is to bring this session, which is the full-fledged Pro Tools, into a Pro Tools Free session. So to do that, we'll go to Convert Session down here at the bottom and navigate to my desktop where Fairy Tale is residing, and then the PTX file, the Pro Tools session file, is what we want. It'll check the session settings. All those look fine. I'll create a new session. It's going to come up with this window, which just means the outputs that were there when I created the session are no longer present, which makes sense because it was on a different system, so that's fine. Again, as always, the default answer for Pro Tools is usually correct. I realize I'm invisible now. Here we go. Okay. There I am, sort of. Okay, and so it came up with this folder. You'll notice everything is grayed out, and if I hit play, nothing shows up on the VU meter. So, what that means is, for whatever reason, it's not mapped to an output. So probably what happened was it imported the session. It had the same outputs from the original recording session, which are no longer active. So what I'm going to do, I'm on a Mac, I'll hit Option. Anytime you want to apply the same command to all the tracks in Pro Tools, you hold down the Option key. I'll go to the Mix window, which, if it's not already on your screen, you can go up to Window and then Show Mix, and that will bring it to the forefront. So I'm going to hold this down, Option key, and then I'm going to go right above the Automation Read. This is the input and the output. I'm going to go to the output and choose, in my case, output 1, 2. So this will show you all the different output paths that are available. In my case, output 1, 2 is what goes to the computer speakers. And so I just enabled that output, and now Pro Tools knows where to send the sound, and yay, we have sound of some sort. Okay. In Pro Tools, anytime I do things that seem useful, yay, I did a good job, I'm going to save it. In my case, Command S. All right, so these are the raw tracks for this session. We've got a kick drum. I'll solo it just so I can hear what it sounds like. Yeah, beautiful. And we've got a snare drum, 2 overheads. Now you notice that all the rest of these are panned mono center. I panned the drum kit overheads left and right just because it's a stereo pair, and so that would be the normal setting. These don't necessarily have to be hard left and right. I could make it, 75% of the way, whatever. Next up is the bass guitar, electric guitar 1, electric guitar 2, synthesizer and voice. There's just a voice overdub track, another overdub vocal track, and then this one is talking, or in this particular song, it's Kermit the Frog singing. So I may just mute that. In the full version of Pro Tools, I could highlight it with the grabber tool and hit Command M, and that would mute it, but that does something different here in Pro Tools Free. Pro Tools First. Okay, so there are a couple of different philosophies in terms of how to mix music, what game plan to follow. I was taught to start with the rhythm section, in this case, the drums and bass, get those sounding good, and then work up to the voices. So let's, I'm going to minimize this a little bit because I'm going to be concentrating on the mix window. Because I'm going to be doing a fair amount of EQing and processing, and I want to be able to not have to go back and hit start over and over again, I'm going to create a loop. So I'll go to the selector tool and pick a beginning and ending point. I'll just scrub through most of the song. And then on the transport window, which if you already aren't seeing it, you can go to window and then down to transport and it should show up. The same buttons are available at the top right of the screen if I were panned, if I had the screen wider. But in either place, you can go here and right click, or in my case, control right click, and I can create a loop or normal play. So when I hit the loop button, it'll just keep cycling over and over this section, which is also a good way to drive your roommates crazy. Okay, so I'm going to solo the kick drum and make it a little bit louder. Now I'm mixing this on a pair of standalone speakers, which are actually pretty good. If you're mixing on the little built-in laptop speakers, you're not going to hear the kick drum probably at all because it's so low frequency that you'll just hear a little bit of the pitter-patter. Always the best idea is to mix with headphones so you get the full fidelity, the full audio spectrum. In any case, you should play it back over several different systems so you can hear how larger speakers will impact the sound of your mix. Okay, so I'm getting mostly just kind of a woof, woof, woof bassy sound. I'd really like a little more definition than that. You remember in the analog mixing console we looked at the top after the preamp were some EQ knobs and then like dynamics and reverb and things like that. In this digital Pro Tools session, those are replaced by plugins. So I've got plugins for EQ, for dynamics, for reverb, and other things as well. I'm going to plug in a 7-band equalizer, which is pretty much the basic equalizer that Pro Tools will use. These dots represent different parts of the audio spectrum, from very low bass to very high treble, and then in between. And so I can move these up to boost the sound in those frequency areas or to attenuate them, make them lower. So what I'm looking for is a little more attack on the kick drum, so I hear kind of the pop of it hitting, of the drum head hitting the drum, or the beater hitting the drum. That's pretty extreme. So I'm boosting this by 10 dB, which is pretty extreme. Normally I would say a little bit less than that, but on my speakers this sounds like it's helping. Another approach might be to go to where it says factory default. These are presets. And so other people have said, well, to attack, to add more attack, you can hit this or add snap or big hi-fi kick. So let's see what big hi-fi kick sounds like. Okay, so we're boosting a little bit up here, taking out a little bit of the mid-range to give it some more definition, and then adding some boof boof to the end, to the low frequencies. So that looks okay to me, so I'll leave that there. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the snare drum. Oh, and again, anytime I do something I like, I'm going to save. So I just did that. Snare drum. That actually sounds pretty good. I can go in and play with the EQ just because I can. So I'm looking for different frequencies that make it sound snare-y. That's maybe a little too crisp. Let me... That's not bad. I'll say this in passing. It's easy when you're adding boosting parts of the frequency spectrum to overload. So I had this too high, and you'll see that it's actually distorting. So I'll pull that back down, and then to clear the distortion off, I'll just click on that red thing. And again, there's factory presets for snare drums as well that I could use. So traditionally, both of these would be mono in the center. I might, just to get the stereo signal going a little bit, I might pan it off to the left, because if you're a drummer, the snare drum is typically on the left side, as I recall. Okay, now the overheads. And this will give us the cymbals, the tom-toms, and all those. I'm getting a lot of snare now, so I'm going to pull that back a little bit. Maybe I'll just mono those. Those don't sound bad. I could, mess with EQ just a little bit to maybe give it a little more low end. Let's see if there's something for drum overheads. Okay, so here we're cutting out the bass drum entirely. That's not really what I'm after. Yeah, that's fine. If I just want to copy this EQ over to the next one, I can hit Option and then drag it over. And now I'm applying the same EQ to both of those drum overheads. So when I get them sounding kind of like what I want, I can solo them and mute them and save it, I should say. Here's the bass. That sounds pretty good. If I wanted to, I might add just a little bit of bass frequency to that. That's a little more than I want. It's a little stringy, but that's not bad. So again, I'm just tailoring it to my ear, to what sounds good to me. So your results may vary. Okay, so I've got two guitars going. I'm going to pan those left and right just so they don't drive me crazy. That sounds pretty good. I might add a little bit of reverb to that just to make it sound, more like it's in the room. Deverb is the default one here. And when it comes up, it's going to sound like it's in the bottom of a well or in a tunnel. The important knob here is this mix. So that's the ratio of the raw, unprocessed sound to the reverby sound. And usually around 25-30% is about right. And there are different presets here for, I'll stop this so it doesn't drive us crazy, hall or church or plate reverb, room, which would be more like a nightclub, ambient, which is also kind of like a room. And then you control how long it is and stuff like that here. So you have a lot of parameters you can mess with. Usually the ones out of the box are not too bad. Okay, and then I've got another guitar also to go here. So we've got this nasty hum. There are a couple ways around this. All right, so I'm going to highlight the track where the nasty hum is. It's on electric guitar 2. So here in the edit window, there's nothing going on this track until he starts playing right here. So I could zoom way in. And see exactly when he starts playing right here and just cut everything before that out. I realize that happened off screen, but so now the electric guitar doesn't start till there. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. So now it's nice and clean until 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to undo that for now. There's another electronic way of doing the same thing. So when a guitarist plugs in a bunch of pedals, each one adds a bit of hum and noise to the signal. And so wouldn't it be nice if there was a little man in the last pedal who just basically said, he's not playing yet, he's not playing yet, he's playing, and turned up the volume at that point. And up till that point, it was just muted. It's kind of the opposite of a limiter, and that's called the noise gate. And you'll find one in the dynamics area. So expander gate. And so basically, if you look at this, that's kind of a non-intuitive graph, but basically it's saying until the volume reaches this threshold, so until it's this loud, I'm going to turn on this, I'm going to attenuate it by this much. So basically, I'm turning off the volume until it reaches this threshold, and then I'll let it pass through unscathed. So let's hear, I'll solo up the electric guitar 2 and see if this is impacting it the way one would like it to. I'll go right before he starts playing. Nothing. Yeah, and it may have cut off a little bit of the attack at the very beginning, so I'm going to turn this knob down so it's like really low, so it's as quickly as humans possibly. There. And so the idea here is because the sound of the guitar itself is louder than the sound of the hum of the amp, when he's playing, his playing is masking the background noise. That's the technical term. It's masking it. When he's not playing, then we're hearing the hum and it's annoying. So this noise gate effectively eliminates the hum whenever he's not playing. All right, and now let's hear the two guitars together and see if we can EQ them so that they both cut. I'll throw the same reverb that I was using here on that one. Let's see how I like that. Maybe I'll make this, it's okay. I think I'll make it really swimmy to give it kind of that surfer dude thing. That's okay. I'll play with a room reverb just to make it sound more nightclubby. Interestingly, as I changed the mix so it was more reverb and less direct guitar, it seemed to kind of back away in the mix, so it wasn't as present. So to compensate for that, I'll probably pull the overall level of the fader up on the guitar. So let's hear what we've got going here. And I can play with the EQ if I want to. Okay, that'll drive me crazy after a while. All right, so let's get an EQ in here and play with it a little more. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit more kind of low end to it to give it a little more definition from the other one. All right, and now I'll save that. And what have I got in the synth track? Anything? So far, no. Yeah, so there's nothing at all in the synth track, so I can just mute that because there's just noise. All right, voices. Here's the fun. Okay, oh, that one was the Kermit the Frog, so I'll concentrate on the actual voices here.
I stuck my head inside of the fountain of youth. What did I see? I couldn't tell you. It doesn't matter.
Okay, it's actually not a bad sound even from the get-go. What I would typically do is add a little compressor on it. And what that's going to do is, if here's our dynamic range between the lowest he goes and the loudest he goes, it's going to reduce that. It's going to basically compress the peaks so that I can bring the overall level higher. It doesn't make sense, but that's how it works. Okay, so I'll go in here, and is there a vocal comp? I'll do that, vocal compressor. I typically like to hit it a little bit harder. So the threshold here is basically at what point the compressor hits, and then the ratio here is how hard it's going to hit. So if it was a limiter, it's just a hard ceiling, that'll be 100 to 1. But I usually go like 8 to 1, 6 to 1, someplace in there.
It wasn't true.
Okay, so this also applies some gain to it, which I'm going to take back out. You'll notice I overmodulated there. Basically what I want to do is have enough, the threshold low enough that it pops in and out, but not so much that it's like totally compressing it all the time.
I need a fairy to lift my pillow and find my tooth.
Okay, something like that. So I've got a threshold at 16 and a ratio about 6 to 1. And I'm going to EQ it a bit. And again, I can just listen to, some standards. Although it sounded pretty good to me. Let's add some presence to it. Let's see what the male vox does. Ooh, interesting.
Give me something new.
Not bad. Let's keep going.
Thought I was gonna get a piece of that, but no, it don't happen like that.
Yeah, I think I like the first one best,
And
actually.
I now see what's right in front of me.
A little more air to it.
And I can't save our dreams.
Okay. And I'll save that, and I'm going to add a little bit of reverb to that as well. So I'll just option click and drag that one over.
It's just a fairy tale to me.
All right, and let's see how that.
Don't think about the lyrics too much.
Oh, so we have another voice popping in here. I think that must be this one.
All right. Don't think about the lyrics too much. They come into our paper and we put them onto our.
Okay. And I would need to EQ that because we got some popping P's. We've got some plosives. So I'll just add the. Actually, I'll just do it by hand. I'll just pull the low frequencies out and see if that takes care of it.
So I just need a reason.
I'll just brighten it up a little bit. Okay, and I've panned that off center so that they're not all right in the same place. Okay, now I want to hear how the whole mix goes, so I will highlight from the start to the end and hit play.
Yeah.
I might be tempted to pull that down a little bit.
I stuck my head inside of the fountain of youth.
Okay, so this is basically me just making it sound good to my ear. It seemed like the bass was way out in the front of the spotlight, so I pulled that down a little bit. I heard some spurious vocals before the music started. Okay, so I could just edit that right out, just editorially.
I stuck my head inside of the fountain of youth. What did I see?
Okay, I'll save that because we're in the ballpark. Now here's where we go into music mixing 200 level. So this it sounds like a fairly good mix. I mean, I'm able to hear all the different instruments. I'm got separation. I've got some reverb and EQ. I wouldn't expect you to do as much EQing as I've done here, but it's kind of in the ballpark. What I'd like to be able to do is now create some movement and some mood in this music. So that means not just leaving everything at the same level, but kind of feeling my way. When does the guitar want to be forward? When does the vocal want to be forward? And kind of shift those things accordingly. To do that, I'm going to use some automation. So I'll go to the auto read and I'll option click it and change it to touch. And you'll notice those turned red. So what that means is as I'm playing it, if I want to, move the faders up and down, as it's moving, I can move them in real time and get a feel for that. So maybe I'll start with the voice a little bit lower and then bring it up as we go. So let me see, vocal start here. So I'll start just a little bit before that, and I want OD vocals. Okay. And you'll see the faders down here. Bring it up a little bit.
I stuck my head inside of the fountain of youth. What did I see? I couldn't tell ya. It doesn't matter. It wasn't true.
Okay, so you'll notice he says the fountain of youth, and if the instruments are too high, it'll cover up the th. So I went ahead and gave it a little goose right at the end of that. And if I did it right, then when I play it back, we'll see this fader here moving up and down, especially when I get to the youth. Let's see.
I stuck my head inside of the fountain of youth. What did I see?
Yay! So it stuck. So basically, I can now go through the entire mix and adjust those levels up and down. If there's a guitar thing that I really want to push forward, I can pull it down. Maybe I want to add something of my own. I can create a new track. It's going to say, where does this audio come from? So I'll look over here. It's from my built-in microphone. So I'll create a harmony track. So I'll double-click on this, call it harm, although I don't really want to do any harm. I'll mute this for now just so that I'm not feeding back. But okay, let's try it. Good luck to us all. I stuck my head into the fountain of youth. I could see. Okay, that was a brilliant harmony. Let's just see how that sits in the mix. Just to make it fit better, I'll slide the same D-verb over onto it. And let's see. It's gonna suck.
I stuck my head inside of the fountain of youth.
Brilliant. Okay, there we go. So now I've done this whole darn shooting match, and it's beautiful. I'm just going to highlight the parts of the song that I want. So in this case, what I would normally do is go in and editorially take out everything before the first guitar starts. What I can do as a shortcut is just highlight that chunk till the end, and then I'm going to export it as an audio mix. I want to export it, let's say, as an MP3, because that's easy, and I want this to be interleaved, and that basically means it's a stereo file instead of two mono files. I'll call this, what's the name of the song? Fairy Tale with Harmony, because I'm so proud of that. And this could be also, you could, and I'll choose where I want to put it. It's in the Documents folder, and yes. One thing to watch for is there's a little check mark in the bottom left corner that says offline, and that lets it go at maximum speed, so it's not trying to print in real time. Let's say I decided that I didn't like the vocals at all, and so instead of having this be a vocal song, I'm just going to mute these and do an instrumental version of it. Or I want to cut it down, by 2 minutes, so I'm going to take the middle out of all of this and just hit delete, and now it's a much shorter song. That's okay. Let's say I want to get some sound effects off the internet, or if you happen to be on campus, in the server, in the network server, Cine, I think it's called the Cine server, there are scads and scads of brilliant sound effects. So if you want to add a car roaring off into the distance, or chirping birds or crickets or something like that, you can do that. So anyway, what I've done now is I just bounced that mix, I exported that mix to my Documents folder, and then that's what I'm going to hand in. So here, Documents, let me see, we are looking for, I think, what was it, Fairy Tale? Oh no, it's not here. It'll be under Pro Tools. Bounced files? Yay, Fairy Tale with Harmony. Before I turn that in, I'm going to listen to it and make sure it sounds like I want it to. And there it is. Yay! Because sometimes in the automation, it can mute tracks and you won't be aware of it because you're not playing it in real time. So I'm going to listen through that before I turn it in, and then I can just copy that to Foxtail, and life is good. Okay, there you have it. I'm sure that there are some things that I misspoke, or things that you're unsure about. Feel free to drop me an email. I realize I went with a lot of processing pretty quick here. Make this your own project. Have fun with it. If you want to add a saxophone solo or hum along with it, go for it. If you want to make it an instrumental, or you can turn the vocals backwards just by going, use the hand tool. Here's the vocal track, audio suite. I can go, reverse, and now it will sound like this. Whoops. It's beautiful. It's the Beatles right there. Okay, there you go. Hit me up with any questions. Thank you for your patience, and I'll see you guys later.